what's in the way is the way. Not to be scared of something that arises in a relationship or at work. Use it as a guiding star to what needs to be released and resolved in your system so that you can move forward with more ease.
Take the time to remind yourself that it all starts inside yourself.
Wake up feeling stuck every day, then you gotta realize that it's all in your mindset. Read about that meditation, you go get around to it, you just haven't had the time. Yeah, I bet. Best thing that you could invest in is you. Could have the results or could have the excuse. Only one life, so take care of what you choose. And I ain't preaching, I'm just telling you the truth. Wake up.
Hello and welcome to Bombastik Broadcasting with Kat, Kim, and Sue.
As you know, here at Bombastik Broadcasting, we believe in shining the light on all things bombastic and illuminating the folks who are stoking the fire in their souls, one podcast at a time. So today, here on our wonderful Bombastik show, we have the beautiful and lovely Gulara Vincent, who is a healing and trauma coach. Also, there's so many things to learn about her, but what I really think is neat about her approach is it's based on three pillars of healing, which is healing the root of trauma, integrating the inner split caused by the trauma, and becoming more embodied and present. So without further ado, there's so much to dive into here. Welcome, Gulara.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm already having fun.
Thank you for your patience, Gulara. There's so much we want to get into straight away. I'm a little confused as to where to start because there's tapping, there's artwork, and I'm just going to start with what exactly is soul motion dance and how do we do it?
Soul motion dance is a form of embodied practice where it's all about presence. So being present to your body, to your movement, and doing whatever you need to do. But as a facilitator, you take a group through a journey. There might be some entry point, for example, your spine, and you might be exploring that throughout the dance and expanding in all directions. And it's a really beautiful experience. And I think there's plenty of soul motion classes in the US, so it's worth trying it.
That sounds awesome.
It is.
Wow, I haven't heard of that before. That sounds absolutely amazing. I agree.
Soul motion.
Soul motion, like your soul moves.
Yeah. That and because I've heard of different dance, like intrinsic dance, where you just kind of let your body move to music and whatever is happening. Is it similar to that?
Yes, there are many variations of that. For example, there are 5 rhythms, there is ecstatic dance, there are lots of practices which have similar premise where you just listen to your body and move from your body. But soul motion is slightly different, as in that entry point and journey that the session can take you on can be really deep, and it can really bring you closer to yourself, but also connect with the others and the community as a whole.
So do you do a coaching session before to figure out where the entry point is, or
anything could be an entry point? It's just bringing curiosity and feeling into what feels right. I mean, it's one of the things that I do many different things.
Yes,
and it's
yes.
one of the things that I do less of. I'm in training and I'm about to complete my certification in soul motion. I joined the training because A, I wanted to dance,
Yes.
and B, I used dance during my retreat as means of getting in the body and shaking off any pent up energy or anything that you want to get rid of. And so I wanted to have a firm foundation of using dance in my in-person events. But it kind of took me on a journey of its own.
As dance will do, right? That's so beautiful. You know, and as you're talking about this, it seems like when we're in trauma, we're very still, right? Yes. You're kind of like paralyzed a little bit. And when you talk about, you know, more dancing, more singing, more voice, you know, I feel like that is part of where you're getting to in these beautiful action steps is part of your healing and trauma coaching.
Absolutely, Kathy, you really nailed it, because freeze response in the nervous system is the definition of trauma. So as long as we're in a fight or flight, there's still life here. But once we tip over into freeze, that's when trauma settles in, and it kind of our whole system can freeze. And to bring some movement that's not just random, but in a safe container where your whole system can relax is incredibly healing.
Gulara, one of the things I've been sort of looking at recently, or one of the things that's come into my experience recently, is the fact that, or the idea that all events that have happened in your life live in your body somewhere.
They do.
I was reading that, so that kind of explains how the older you get, you have all these more, painful experiences, and they're stuck in your body, and then your body starts to slow down.
Yeah, I so agree. And all that unresolved trauma, it doesn't just live in our minds, it's kind of in our cells. And if there is some area in the body that's particularly susceptible to disease, chances are there's something stored there, which is emotional and energetic. Yes, sure, there are, epigenetics and all that, and, illness that's passed down from generations, etc. But there is also a lot of energetic blocks and a lot of emotional trauma that's passed down from one generation to another. So it's not surprising that certain illnesses can manifest in our body as a result of that stuck energy.
That was a sentence that I read the one time, that generational diseases are not generational.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's like so trippy to me. And then, I've heard also of a masseuse was talking to me about how she had been massaging this one client, and she hadn't tapped into her more conscious realm yet, but she would massage this one client every week or whatever for, several years. And then one day she found some little sort of bump somewhere, and she started really kind of going in. And then the next thing, he like burst into tears and was just like sobbing. And she just kind of let him be. And then he went, and then he texted her that like some massive childhood trauma had come up from that massage. And, he was just so grateful that it had come up.
There are so many different doorways into our trauma, isn't it? Like there can be some talking therapies, they can be, and the entry point could be the body. Sometimes you find, I remember earlier in my own healing journey, I did a set of chiropractic treatments, and you wouldn't think about it. And I remember after 10 sessions, I felt like, oh my God, I'm not carrying all that burden. Like the trauma of my ancestral lineage, that it felt like I was kind of burdened and I was carrying everyone on my back. And through that physical treatment, I felt like, oh, I can just put that down. Unfortunately, it came back on because
Right.
the energetics shifted. The body on its own can't necessarily always sustain, can't by itself come into balance if there is still some stuck energy that weighs it down or pulls it out of balance. But it's wonderful when it's both ways, that there is some trauma work and embodiment, some sort of body hands-on treatment to help the body come into balance.
How
That's
true
beautiful.
is that?
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
I was thinking about that when you were saying, because I come from a family of chiropractors, and I've been lucky enough to always be surrounded with that. But it's so funny how it's almost like a regular thing, that kind of self-care. Like massage, I think, extends your life, right? It's not like you can get one massage and be like, oh, I'm good for good. Some things just don't work that way. But when do you know if you have had a kind of, because there's big T trauma and little T trauma, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes the little T traumas that you think, oh, well, I shouldn't even mention that because it's so small, but they turn into complex traumas, right? And just to give everybody that kind of awareness that it's okay to feel like you're not okay, even if it seems small. You can validate some self-care for yourself, right? But how do you know when maybe there's a big trauma and when it's really gone? Because I've had it happen to me where I'm like, oh, finally, maybe it's gone now, right? And then you take a breath, and then 5 days later, oof, it kind of hits you in your emotional chest, right? So how do you know if it's really cleared up for good?
Sure. So first of all, I want to chime in with what you were saying about trauma. Trauma doesn't need to be traumatic. We often think about trauma as something, but it's just something that's stuck in your body, feels unresolved, undigested. And when we do healing, it often happens that we go up in a spiral. So it could be the same experience or feeling that can come back, but it's a different aspect of it, right? It's not the same thing. It can look like a tree. We see the trunk, and then there are so many conclusions, realizations, beliefs we have created as a result of that one event that you can heal it. And sometimes you might feel other offshoots. So it doesn't mean that you haven't healed the feeling. It's just there might be other things related to it that keep bringing the feeling up and asking you to continue with that exploration. For example, when I was 6, I witnessed my mum's slit wrists. She attempted suicide. She was unsuccessful because I, shouted, and my grandparents came. But I have done maybe hundreds of sessions of different modalities, and it keeps coming back. It keeps coming back because it was such a big T. And there were so many different conclusions and feelings, and so much got wrapped into that one event. And from the outside, it might look like, well, I haven't healed it, but I know better because I've written a book about, but that includes that particular memory. I feel like I've made peace with it on the whole. And sometimes there are echoes, and it's like, oh, and this belief or this aspect of it still needs to come home and get integrated.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, because I was totally thinking along those same lines about how sometimes you need to go back to the same thing 12 times. And then, probably you having a bunch of different approaches is super, super helpful. You could try, do a bit with, dancing, a bit with tapping, a bit with other options that you have.
Yes. When I do healing, I integrate them all. I just kind of pull on the tool that's needed in that moment, following the energy and being guided. I tend to integrate whatever I'm doing because there are so many different doorways and different layers that one event may contain, and one door is not better than the other. They all lead to wherever we need to get to. But it can be helpful just to come at it from different angles and viewpoints.
Gulara.
And with the tapping, you obviously incorporate that into your coaching. Can you do tapping on yourself as well?
Yes, absolutely. All the time.
All the time.
I'd love to hear more of your story, that took you to where you are today and how you can help people, how you found those gifts, I'm sure, to help yourself. Also, when you talk about, how they come up in different ways, the traumas, does it have to be scary work?
Absolutely. What I do is very gentle and kind of follows your rhythm and your energy, because when you're doing healing, it's not just somebody does something to you and then you're fixed. You're not broken. All right. It's
You're not
a
broken.
process of co-creation, and you go at a pace that your subconscious mind is ready to go. Right. If you push it, force it, then it can backfire in a sense. So it doesn't need to be hard. You don't have to push it and fix it in one go. The softer you are with it, the more you can relax with it, the more it'll dissolve, the quicker it'll dissolve. And if you can find the holding that really supports you in letting go, then it can be super gentle. I have a teacher who says, we hold on when we don't feel held. Yeah. And so to find that safe havens, that space where you can let go, because sometimes because there's shame, there's stigma, we might try to do it on our own or find a way. But these wounds happen in a relationship, and they need to heal in a relationship. So it's important to find someone or something that really holds you so that you can let go. And the more you can relax, the easier it's to let go. If we are kind of contracting and coming at it as a battle, then it will resist. Because If you think of the part that's hurting, it's our protective mechanism. The part that resists or feels frustrated with something. Maybe if we have a specific example, it might be easier to explain this aspect. I don't know, like
How about
shame.
Okay, that's a good one.
Let's say somebody is ashamed about the stigma that's attached to healing. Well, that shame is your protector. It's trying to protect you from some uncomfortable feelings. It's just a part of you. It's not who you are. But the bigger behind that shame, there's a wounding. Yeah, there was some hurt, and so then we have this part that feels ashamed, so that we can hide, we can play small, we don't engage, we don't come forward, and so there is a role for this part. The bigger the wound, the stronger the protection. And so we need to be gentle with ourselves when we step onto this journey. And if there are some parts that are resisting or pushing back or shaming us in some way, it's just a part. It's trying its best to actually protect us. It's just its methods are so young. It doesn't really give us what we need and can hold us back.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, because you've already been through all the trauma. I think a lot of people resist the healing process because of all the pain that's attached to it. So I love that approach.
Yeah, and you don't need to relieve the trauma to release it. Sometimes there are some talking therapists, I'm respectful. I've done 4 years of talking therapy, like a full-time job. And in some ways it can be a little bit re-traumatizing as you go into the story and you are up here, and having the embodied approach where you can really listen to your body and listen to what feels right. You don't need to kind of relive the whole thing again in your mind. Can be much, much gentler on your system. Yeah, like I found that once I found the methods that I use these days, which are more energetic, like it's to do with releasing energy rather than engaging with the story. Story is important. It's not to dismiss it. But if it's all about talking, that doesn't necessarily release the trauma, because your trauma goes straight to your amygdala. Amygdala is part of your brain that's responsible for fight, flight, and freeze response. It is mammalian brain, and it doesn't necessarily register words. Words do not touch it. And so you can talk about your trauma till cows come home. and that part of the brain won't necessarily relax and let go. And so combination of various tools can be most effective.
I love that.
So when you're working with somebody, they don't necessarily tell you their trauma. They just work through it, through the various
I pick
options.
up on a lot of information. Like people come and say hello, and I say, okay, here's where we're going. But
Really?
I honed my skill in a sense, because I used to find stories quite overwhelming, and the client
yes.
gets overwhelmed, and I've got like 20 minutes and they're still talking and they're just kind of on their, and I found a way that worked for my nervous system and benefits the clients the best. And in a sense, most of what I found is that what you're experiencing in your present day life and whatever trauma you had, oftentimes, in my experience, 99% of the time, it's got nothing to do with that situation. That's an echo and symptom of something that happened before. So you can go and work on that, and you'll see that there are situations throughout your life where there were some similarities of that situation. Whereas if we go back to the root, like often clients come and I take them back to the womb. Don't even need to know specific traumas they had in their lives. There's so much we absorb in the womb at deeply unconscious level. A lot of our patterns and imprints form in the womb, where we take on mother's energy, where we already have ancestral information coded in our DNA. The scientists say that our DNA contains up to 7 generations of ancestral information. So all of that gets already formed and absorbed at that deeply unconscious level. And when you heal that, then you can bring more compassion to what came later and understand that actually it happened because there was something prior to that.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
With all
Absolutely.
that in mind, I mean, how do you even start with a client?
So I would often ask them whether they were a planned child, because but the client can come with whatever issue. They might come and say, "Oh, I've got money blocks," or "I'm really struggling to be visible in my business," or "My relationship is falling apart." So the entry point could be anything. So whatever's happening in their present day life. And then I would ask them, were they a planned pregnancy in their family? Because what happens when the mother finds out whether she's having a child, that first reaction to the baby, and this happens deeply unconscious level, right? Like she's not intending to reject them. But if that first reaction is, oh no, that gets imprinted into the subconscious mind of a child. And then you live your life feeling rejected at work, feeling rejected by clients, feeling rejected in your relationships. That first initial imprinting of that welcome or being rejected, and most of my clients are probably coming to me because they have been rejected for whatever reason. And it's nobody's fault, the mother might be already, 3 children and hands are full and the wrong timing, not enough money, whatever it is. But it's like all those stories imprint and impact us for the rest of our lives. So I ask a little bit about the history around, whether they had siblings and that kind of information. And then and then sweep clean the whole thing. Yeah.
That's amazing. I've never heard that.
But it does show, right? Like people who have certain level of confidence and feel like really wanted and entitled to be here and have the right to be here and have the right to take up space. Kind of shows, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Now that you say that, yes, it does.
That's pretty crazy. I've never thought of that before either. But that makes a ton of sense. Do people ever come to you with like a physical pain to
Yes.
start with? Okay.
Yes.
So they'll be like, my knees won't stop hurting or whatever.
Absolutely. Lots of physical symptoms. And I often find there are so many emotional reasons. Like with knees, it's often fear of moving forward. Right? So there's some change or need to change direction or do something outside of your present comfort zone, and knees going to seize up. Or, I don't know, get a lot of autoimmune diseases. And that's to do with inflammation in the body. There is so much unprocessed anger, so many suppressed emotions that it can create some sort of heat in the body. Yes, lots of different examples I can give, but it's very common that physical symptoms can be an entry point. And physical symptoms come at a point where your mind tries to get your attention and you keep ignoring it. And then the body starts speaking up. And the more you ignore it, the louder it gets until you've got to take some measures, right?
Then you go to the doctor and they put a Band-Aid on it and you okay for a few weeks / months / years, and then and then whatever needs to be processed comes back, right?
Yes, it does. And thank goodness that we have doctors and they can do something hopefully in the moment. And, it's all important. And if it's persisting and if wanting to find some deeper relief, because there is something there, right? Like the body is speaking up and the body is very clear and loud. It's amazing if you start looking at spiritual sort of meaning of each illness. There is so much information. And every time I lead clients through that type of healing, they're just blown away. They say, how do you know all these things? And I'm like, well, your body told me.
Like you said, thank goodness that we do have the MDs, the doctors, the people to help us. Because if we didn't have a little bit of help getting through that rough patch, we couldn't listen to our bodies. I think I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't talk about another part of your coaching that you do too, because I love that you mentioned money blocks in your coaching and the not good enough kind of voice that so many of us have tucked away in the back of our heads. Can you talk a little bit about those two aspects of your coaching?
Absolutely. Those are my favorite, with especially money, because money blocks have nothing to do with money.
Right?
They,
Yep. Okay.
they have everything to do with our relationships. I just had a call earlier today around money blocks and relationships, and I asked the group to imagine money as a person and then describe their relationship with money as if they were a person, right? And so there were lots of elusive, avoidant, ignoring me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, okay, so who does this person remind you of? Who else behaved like that? And the majority of group was mom, dad, or mom and dad.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
No way.
because
Isn't that crazy?
we have some. That's the in terms of money, it's a relationship, right? And any relational wound you have, which is often created in your formative years, gets projected onto all of your relationships, including money. So you can deal with money as a symptom and battle money and get cross about it. And often it's just the relationship. And to look at it as a relationship can be incredibly healing.
Do you like talk to money? Like, hey, money, what's going on
Where you
today?
been? Why haven't you called me? Right?
I have done
What should
years
we do
and years of
today?
money healing programs for myself. It took me a while to get there. I've done it all. Anything that had a label with money in a program, I have done it. So I've done fair.
Good.
I don't talk to money anymore. It's fine. It
It's
comes.
just your friend now.
Yes,
That's
we are on
great.
very good terms.
Okay, great.
But partly because I have healed a lot of mother-father wound. And I'm still doing it to a certain extent. I don't feel like it's, you don't take a shower once and then you stay clean forever.
All right.
There's so many things that gets generated and accumulated as you go along in life. And so I don't feel like I'm done. But that's the money piece. In terms of good enough, I have a particular approach. Again, strangely enough, I was teaching that yesterday. And again, if you think of a particular area of your life, just as an example, where you don't need to say anything, but just thinking about an area where you don't feel good enough, oftentimes there are 4 behaviors that manifest themselves in relation to not feeling good enough. And the first one is you go into avoidance. You become perfectionist, you procrastinate, you avoid, you try to not look at it. It's like elephant in the room and all the rest. Because do you remember that protector we were talking about? The part that
Yes.
tries to shield you? There's a wound behind that made you feel not good enough. That's often a very core wound, very young. And then there's a protector that says, right, we're going to avoid this at all costs. We're not going to feel that pain again. Nobody going to criticize and tell us off, humiliate us, put us down. We're just going to avoid it. And then the second reaction is we blame ourselves. We just say, oh, it's all my fault. I'm stupid, all the rest. And often it's a very young response because as children, we couldn't blame our carers. It would have fundamentally undermined our sense of safety in the world. We had to take it on ourselves. That was the only way to make sense of the world. We couldn't say, oh, mom and dad is having a hard time. We said, I've done something wrong. I'm bad for whatever reason. And so every time you fear that there might be a risk of you failing or not doing something well enough, you'll blame yourself and go into, oh, I just can't figure this out. It's not for me. It works for everybody else, but not me. And that still creates avoidance, right? We just don't go there. the third reaction is we blame others. We blame economy, we blame our parents, we blame other people who didn't encourage us or competitors. And behind that, there is pain. There is something that we're unable to feel because it's too frightening. And then we just put it out. And when we've tried it all and nothing worked, we just shut down and withdraw, isolate, we don't engage, we hide. And then we cycle through all these reactions. They're not linear. We just jump from one to the other. There might be one or two that's our common sort of go-to, but on the whole, we have all these reactions. And once you meet these protectors and bring them home and welcome them, you can get in touch with your enoughness because you are already enough. A part of you doesn't feel that you are enough, that you are not qualified enough, you haven't done enough, you're not slim enough, you're not this enough, but it's just a part that feels that way. And you know that you are enough. There is an inherent enoughness in us because you're a magnificent child of the universe. You're meant to be here and you are already perfect as you are.
There was so many questions, so many things. But so that's not good enough. Wow. I mean, I'm very visual, and I was thinking, gosh, I wish there was a human battery tester that we could be like, oh, a not good enough scale. Like, where are you? Because it's one of those so hidden. And when you listed those 4 different things that you go into, I mean, wow. And that must be a drain on your nervous system as well. And so much of your business, your hopes, your dreams, your everything you want to do in life. And what a shame, because it doesn't really exist, like you're saying. So there's a root of where this not good enough is. It's, even though it spreads to a lot of different things that you tell yourself in your mind. Is there one root that you can get to and just kind of extract?
I think it's a common human predicament, and it can be that small t where somebody said something kind of disparaging or dismissive, and it landed like a ton of bricks in your system. Like, to them, it may not have been even a big deal, and that's a good case, right? Like in bad case scenarios, we have critical parents who spewed their rage, who treated us in such a way that it created that sense of, oh, I'm not doing something right. There's something wrong with me. I'm not getting this. Yeah. And so it's usually very young and very tender. But if you are mindful of your reactions, you could potentially start getting closer to yourself, because these reactions and reactivity can keep us stuck. The amount of energy, as you said, that can go into procrastination and beating yourself up, or perfectionism, like it's got to be perfect before I can step out. And it can take days, months, years sometimes. And it's such a drain on our energy.
Familiar with that. Yeah, I was going to pop in and say, what if you do all those things
in sequence?
All at once. Gulara, have you found people who have? I mean, I'm sure you're going to say yes, but stuff that's buried that they didn't even know was there.
Yes, all the time.
All the time, huh?
Yeah, because it's like our subconscious mind protects us from something that could potentially be painful or disturbing. And it's disturbing to a younger aspect of you. Like when you were 3 years old, you couldn't handle that situation. This
Yes.
is where the split happens, right? We kind of compartmentalize that bit. We put it in a nice box and push it out of sight. And it's an incredible capacity of human psyche to do that, because then we can move forward. We can keep on going.
Function.
Yeah, function and get on with life. But that box is sitting there somewhere. And so when it comes to unwrapping it, that younger aspect might be like, if I touch that, I'll be annihilated. I'm not going anywhere near that. So it would potentially keep it hidden from your conscious mind. So your conscious mind is like 5 to 10% of your mind. And then there's like 90 to 95% of your mind is a subconscious. And subconscious mind is where all your drivers are coming through. That's where all your impulses, all your desires, all this information, all this trauma, memories, it's all stored in the back of your mind. And your conscious mind is like a tip of an iceberg. And so often it's all very subconscious. They don't necessarily even put two together or see the connection. And then when it's revealed, it's often like, wow,
Wow.
like that.
Wow. Kim, when you said, can you do all of those? I'm like, I think I have too. And in sequence,
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you're going anywhere, right? Just because you felt all those things. Did you say you just did a workshop about the not good enough?
Yes, I teach a group on one of my teachers' platform, and I've done a call on Good Enough yesterday, and I'm teaching a 5-week course on that particular framework, using that particular framework in June. So
beautiful,
lovely.
You're very welcome.
And then I know we've touched on this a few times, but like, how did you start out, Gulara? How,
Yes.
you know?
Yes, thank you. I kind of, I'm mindful that it got buried in all the other things I spoke about.
Yeah.
I didn't set out to be a healer. I was a university law lecturer with a lot of trauma. So I was doing a lot of my own healing work. And what came prior to the healing is I was writing my memoirs. Like I've published 2 of my books so far. And everybody told me, you can't make a living out of writing books. I wanted to leave my university job and become a full-time writer. And I thought, okay, what else do I like? What else do I really enjoy? And I thought, well, I'm doing so much healing. I literally felt like it was a full-time job.
Yes.
Why not try it and see what happens? And then healing completely overtook the writing. I mean, writing still was happening a little bit in the background, but on the whole, it found me rather than me looking for it. And it's literally on my journey, I just stumbled across I just followed the impulse. Must have been quite adventurous at the time. And
yes,
it grew from there. But sometimes when it's inbuilt, and I know that to an extent, I had a healer in me since I was a child. Like I grew up in an environment where it was quite volatile and there was a lot of violence and it was quite unsafe. And so I've perfected my ability to palpate and feel the energy and know what people feel before even they knew what they're feeling, to an extent that it's really profitable nowadays. But in the past, it kind of came from necessity to feel people. And but you don't necessarily distinguish when and how, when to turn it off, when to turn it on. And now it's more regulated. But I have done a lot of my own healing as part of this learning to support other people. And I continue to do that. I don't feel like, I think my death wish will be to have another session.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
so great. That's so great.
When you show us backward in your life a little bit at your different, careers and points of life, it really is like you're fighting injustice in a really neat way still, because the greatest form of injustice that we can do to ourselves is often self-inflicted. And you're really helping unravel and resolve that for so many people,
Yes, justice is definitely at the heart of what I've done for many years. I remember at some point I was a university law lecturer and I was writing and I was blogging and I was like, well, and doing healing. I was like, well, it's like I have 3 different jobs. And then eventually it came to me that my university lectureship, my specialism was around minority rights and human rights. And so I was giving voice to those who may never be heard otherwise. And then in my writing, I was giving voice to women in Azerbaijan who may never be heard otherwise. And in my healing work, I was giving voice to those parts of our psyche that were suppressed, repressed, pushed aside, rejected, exiled, orphaned. And so that sense of justice has been really prevalent in my work.
I love that. The gentle bombasticness. That's
So,
I like that you pulled that out. Cat
That is
justice. I love it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, you can, it's funny because when you look in your life, you think you're going to be one thing, right? And then you have this other part of your ego that really wants to be, an artist or a dancer or a movie star or a writer, this like thing that people tell you, oh, you can never be that. It's not polite, right? To talk about money or any of these things. And
Not
then,
polite.
right? And
Yeah.
and so we learn, like you say, like exiled. I love all the words you just used. Oh my goodness, Gulara. And then to see that at this point in your life, you are a writer. You have done even your work with being a lawyer. I mean, that was absolutely necessary for where you are now. Even your trauma growing up. I mean, if we look at that all like your beautiful hero's journey, maybe other people can take from that as well, that every part of your life matters, right?
yes.
And you can wake up at any time and get in touch and heal at any time.
I think when I started, there definitely was a part of me that felt broken and felt like I needed a lot of fixing. And then there came a point when I felt, no, actually, I'm all right. I'm enough. And I can grow and expand. There is no limit to just how much more may be possible. And so for me, healing nowadays is an act of curiosity. It's like, okay, what else? What else can I let go? Like, why carry it if it's possible to let it go? It's
Yes.
just bringing more ease to life.
That's funny because I was thinking that even before. Kathy, you go, okay, I've worked on this, 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 and this. Surely I'm done now. And then something happens or some part of your body's hurting and you're like, okay, wait, there's more. How is that possible? Come on.
Yeah, it should be fixed by now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. It's okay. And then also like I was just thinking about then you attract partners into your life and they're reflecting what you haven't resolved in yourself. And you're okay. Well, what's going on here?
So you get to see it from the outside, right? If you couldn't see it in yourself, you get to actually look at it now and you're like, ooh.
Yes, it's like that. Yeah. In some ways, again, from the work I've done with lots of clients, they marry their parent in a sense.
Yes.
There's so much similarity with something that's unresolved from the past. And it's like our partners are so well positioned to press all the buttons in our system because they know us so well. And there is a constant invitation to look, okay, where else am I hurting? Where else am I stuck? Because it will bring stuff up. But the thing with the partners is that because we're so close to them, our nervous system communicates with their nervous system all the time. And our nervous system has 3 circuits. You're either safe, or you're in fight or flight, or you're in freeze response. And one of them is always on. So if you don't feel safe in yourself, at home, in your body, your partner's going to pick up on your nervous system response. And their nervous system going to respond to your nervous system. So sometimes things happen, even without you saying a thing, or comes out of the blue because something in your nervous system went, oh! And then depending on their reactions, they might be running away or they might get angry to shake it off, like to come out of it. And so much of there are so many different layers to our interactions in relationships. There are like ancestral family sort of echoes that play out through the partner because we kind of drawn to them. There's something familiar in them. We know that energy. There could be nervous system activation. There could be also.
Right. Because, and I was thinking about that, like you marry your parents because, it feels like safe. It feels like home, right? It feels like a family. This is what a family is. So
unfortunately, sometimes that's quite toxic and unhealthy and unhealthy.
Yes, exactly.
And it doesn't mean that, we need to give ourselves hard time because kind of suddenly realize, oh, MG, my partner reminds me of, just to bring compassion and say, oh, it's just familiar. And maybe there is something I need to tend to in my history for this person, not necessarily mirror that aspect to me so much. For me, anything that happens in your life is a doorway to yourself. What's in the way is the way. Not to be scared of something that arises in a relationship or at work. Use it as a, as a guiding star to what needs to be released and resolved in your system so that you can move forward with more ease. I mean, ultimately for me, that's the criteria. Like, how much more ease can I bring into my life?
Absolutely.
And that's that other mindset shift too, because we were kind of raised to think if it, no pain, no gain. And as we hear more healers like yourself talk about, it's okay to go with the ease, with the flow of less resistance. But it's funny because it's just all programming, right? It's all retraining yourself.
It's a protector, right? It says, don't lower your guard, stay up, look, watch, make sure that nothing catches us off guard. We need to be constantly hyper alert, right? It's just that and just saying, it's okay. I'm an adult here. I'm in my body. I'm in this moment. In this moment, I'm safe. Nothing bad's happening.
Wow, you are good. Fantastic.
Sweet.
But I agree with you 100%, Kath. Whenever you hear it's supposed to be easy, you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Because our sense of validation came from all that hard work, right? Like I have to, and some of the belief system that I have to work hard for my money, for example, and that runs in the ancestral line. And somehow, if you dare to disagree and make it easy, then you're disrespecting and dishonoring the generations before you.
Right.
And you will be separate and you will be alone. And from developmental, like centuries, we couldn't survive on our own. We needed our tribe. We needed sense of belonging. So we're going to go alone with those ancestral programming until we're able to look at it, see it for what it is and say, thank you for all your hard work. And that was your journey. And I can choose my own path. It doesn't have to be easy. It doesn't have to be hard to make it worthwhile. It's like we don't value when something comes easy, and then we overcomplicate things and make it harder than it needs to be.
Yes, because we kind of feel like everybody else had to work super hard to get anything. We can't just be coasting along with the flow of the river.
Absolutely.
Dive into glory. And then, Gulara, I know you're in the UK, but where did you grow up?
I grew up in Azerbaijan. I lived there till I was 30. I came to the UK to do masters and then PhD in law. So I came to study and then stayed on and taught at the University of Birmingham for 14 years. Yeah,
that's great.
So,
amazing.
But yeah, I still have connections with Azerbaijan. Traveling there in 2 days' time to see the family.
Oh,
Nice.
that's
Okay,
wonderful. Safe travels.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
I have to ask too, because of, is it one, as I want this interview to go on and on and on, I think I should just read your book. So what exactly, is it one book that you've written? Does it talk about all these things? What is it called?
So the first book is Hammer, Sickle and Broom.
Ooh.
It's a memoir of my childhood set against the collapse of the Soviet Union. It's a personal story, but it's kind of in the midst of all the political turmoil and cultural makeup of the country. So it's my personal story, but it doesn't necessarily talk about healing any of those wounds, but it shows how intergenerational trauma can play out in our own lives. And the second
how
book,
brave too, I have to say, to write your own story, right, Kim? It's very brave.
Very brave.
So a lot of us get that advice. You write your story, know your story, and to really tell it truthfully and go back. It's almost like drawing your self-portrait for the first time in art class. You kind of want to fudge what your eyes look like. You don't really want to draw exactly what your nose looks like. Kudos. That was beautiful and brave. I look forward to reading that.
It's so liberating to actually put it down and write the truth, because there are many different truths, as I discovered when I was writing my second book, because it's called Fragile Freedom, and it covers period of 17 to 27 years old when I was in Azerbaijan. And it was perhaps the most traumatic period of my life because I was raped. There's quite a lot of sexual trauma that happened in that period. And I told a particular version of that story, that the story went, oh, poor me, and bad things happened to me. It just was like, yeah, and then bad things did happen. But I wasn't a passive bystander, like there was something like I brought to the table in a sense, like how did that happen? And so to sit down and like really dig into, okay, so what was my role? And it was hard to face it, but it was so empowering because what it left me with, I'm not a passive victim to whom bad things happen. Like I had a role to play in that situation. And yes, what happened was wrong and bad, not to excuse or justify the other person's behavior, but it wasn't, like I wasn't just helpless, powerless person that had to endure those experiences. So it was incredibly liberating to write it and put it out, which is a different process in its own right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow, that must have been quite a...
Go ahead.
No, that's quite a journey to go through that kind of thing. Yes. And be able to say, I brought something to the table too. That's got to be one hell of an awakening.
And it's probably controversial because I think for many of us who had that level of trauma, it's very hard to go there because there was something awful that happened. And not to minimize the pain, but there are many different versions of stories we can tell ourselves to justify, minimize, make it somehow livable, and it's the parts come in and tell those stories. It's not wrong, it's not bad if, you have a particular version of the story, or if you disagree with my approach, it's okay. It's understandable.
I really want to...
It's been a journey. Yeah.
And I want to support you in that because anyone who's been in a situation where you've been hurt or wronged, you do go into that place of victim because you have to understand that something happened to you. You have to go in there. But I feel like sometimes you can stay in victim too long. In order to not be a victim, you have to kind of see a responsibility aspect to it to get the empowerment. Like, what part of this was me? Because if you do stay in victim, you can't go many places from there. I think that's a beautiful thing you just did there. And, again, going back to that not good enough and how victimizing that can be. And you did not blame completely someone else. You did not completely blame yourself. There was a beautiful dance you did there and a shift. And oof.
Well, just to make it clear, I've done both, like blaming out and blaming self for a very long time.
Oh, I'm sure.
It just kept me stuck, like in the shutdown and the whole cultural stigma. I grew up in a Muslim country where virginity was the thing, like you lose your virginity, you're absolutely nothing, and then it happens, and then all sorts of other things happen, including getting involved in prostitution and finding my way back to redemption and forgiveness and letting go of the shame. It's been an incredible journey, but the point is, like, it's a co-creation. Don't just like, something doesn't just happen to us. We co-create our experiences, and often we co-create them from wounding. I think writing the book, it was just like, oh my God, like one car crash after another. Don't do it. What are you doing? I can't possibly do that. Not again. And it's just so painful to look at myself in that way and see what I was doing, but understand that, it was just the wounded aspect of me that was acting out. And she was doing the best she could at that time with the resources that she had at her disposal.
Absolutely.
If I could do better, I would have done better. That's all I could do.
Yes.
Oh my
wow.
goodness.
I know. I wish we could go on forever. Gulara, here at Bombastik Broadcasting, we believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. So we wanted to just highlight some of the courses and things that you offer. And I'm thinking, if you'll just tell us your website URL and then just some of the things you have available.
Sure. My website is gularavincent.co.uk, and I've got lots of things on offer. I am a bit prolific
you
in
have.
terms of what I do, but I have the healing room, which is very low key in a sense. It's not super intense. There's some recorded stuff that you can take in your own time, like ancestral healing. And then there's a monthly EFT and Good Enough program included in that 6-month membership program. I teach healers. So I teach my intergenerational trauma healing framework that I've developed based on all the work I've done. And I teach it to practitioners. There's a level 1 and level 2, which is more to do with marketing and visibility and money, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I've got also my 2 wonderful books, even if I say so.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, plenty. Just come and visit and see what calls you. I'll be very happy to support you on your journey.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Well, that's it from Bombastic Broadcasting. Be a dancer, be gently curious, and most importantly, be aware that you are good enough.
Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. So much more in this world that you can do. Wake up. Every little thing in this life that you're going through don't mean a thing. Wake up. You keep shining. You keep grinding. Wake up. All is aligning. All you gotta do. Wake up. My man Mo said that the reason that the world fucked up is cause everybody lazy. Positivity is corny to them, but they still gon' complain about the bad going on. Shit crazy. So I just had to drop a little project. I don't know what the object is, but this feels good. If you too hood for the good vibes, sorry I ain't got nothing for you. Why should I?
You shouldn't. We out here doing the things that y'all wouldn't. Life could be a sweet ride. Proof is in the pudding. These guys with the weak vibes, I'll show them where to put it. Down bad, I was looking for the answer. Mind all mad, taking over like a cancer. Canceled the sub plans, came from up above. Told me everything we're doing, showing love. And I gotta
wake up. So much more in this world that you can do. Wake up. Every little thing in this life that you're going through don't mean a thing. Wake up. You keep shining. You keep grinding. Wake up. All is aligning. All you gotta do. Wake up.
I've been getting so high, head up in the clouds. I don't ever wanna come down, but I gotta
wake up.
Ain't enough time to be down. Bust a smile, cause it's yet another day that I'm allowed to
wake up.
Feeling blessed to be alive, man. Not long till we thriving. Take the time to remind yourself that it all starts inside yourself. Most.
Wake up feeling stuck every day, then you gotta realize that it's all in your mindset. Read about that meditation, you go get around to it, you just haven't had the time yet. Yeah, I bet. Best thing that you could invest in is you. Could have the results or could have the excuse. Only one life, so take care of what you choose. And I ain't preaching, I'm just telling you the truth. Wake up. So much more in this world that you can do. Wake up. Every little thing in this life that you're going through